Rich people aren't magicians. Here's the playbook on one concrete book. A $10 million portfolio, a $4 million loan against it, how interest gets paid without selling, how the rate stacks up, what happens if prices crash, and 2 real cases where the spiral hit. Buy, borrow, die. A paycheck of $100. Before you spend, tax takes a cut, say 30, 70 left. Realized income, skimmed at the source. Paper wealth is different. You bought stock at $10. It rises to $100. On screen, you're up 90 a share, but you haven't sold. That gain is unrealized. Usually no capital gains bill yet. Sell those shares to fund your life, and the gain becomes real. The tax code sees it. Liquidity costs a taxable realization. Ultra-wealthy treat, selling as a last resort, not a lifestyle. Buy ownership. 100,000 shares at $100. Portfolio, 10 million. Old cost basis, 1 million. 9 million of unrealized gain sits parked on the books. Borrow. Pledge the 10 million portfolio to a bank or broker. Draw 4 million on a securities-backed line of credit. You still own the shares. The loan is a claim against the pile, not a sale of the pile. That 4 million is generally not taxable income. You didn't earn wages, you didn't sell, you owe the bank. The capital gains clock on the shares stays paused. But debt has a cost. Interest. How do they pay it without liquidating? Interest is usually billed monthly, interest only, no required principal paydown. On 4 million at about 7%, that's roughly $23,000 a month. They don't sell shares to pay it. They use other cash, salary, bonuses, business income, dividends the pledged shares still pay, rents, or cash on hand. Some draw a little more on the line to cover interest that raises the loan balance. Interest is a cash flow problem, not an automatic liquidation. Securities-backed lines are usually floating, often a spread over SOFR. In recent conditions, many quotes land in the mid to high single digits, often cheaper than credit cards or unsecured personal loans, and often competitive with, or a bit below, typical HELOC headlines. Mortgages can be similar or lower when fixed. Exact quotes move with the Fed in your relationship. The trade-off isn't just rate, it's maintenance call risk on the portfolio. Spend the loan principal. Keep paying monthly interest from cash flow. Let the portfolio sit. Assets can rise. Equity can rise. Tax on the embedded gain stays deferred as long as you don't sell, and as long as the bank stays comfortable with the collateral. A related product, the margin loan. Both use securities as collateral. A classic securities-backed line is usually non-purpose. You generally cannot use the cash to buy more stock. A margin loan is built to buy securities. Margin often has tighter, faster call dynamics, same family of risk, different use of proceeds. While pledged, you typically still own the shares. Dividends and distributions can still hit the account, and that cash can help service interest. You may still trade inside the pledged account under lender rules. What you can't freely do is yank collateral out without the bank's blessing. Ownership stays. Control is constrained. If the stock falls, you can be forced to sell. Price drifts from 100 toward 50. Portfolio slides from 10 million toward 5. The 4 million loan barely moves. Loan to value climbs. Cross the bank's limit, they call. Post cash, or we liquidate. Forced liquidation is the cascade. The lender sells shares into weakness. That sale can trigger tax. Proceeds pay the loan. Equity gets hit from 3 sides. lower price, a tax bill, and debt repayment. Interest was never the forced sale. The collateral break is. March 2021. Archegos, Bill Huang's family office, built huge concentrated bets with leverage from multiple banks, largely through total return swaps. When names like Viacom CBS sold off, the banks demanded more collateral. Archegos couldn't post enough. Prime brokers raced to unwind. Related stocks were dumped into the market. The book collapsed in days. Credit Suisse alone took billions in losses. Not a simple lifestyle line of credit, but the same spiral: leverage, collateral break, forced selling, cascade. A closer cousin to the lifestyle playbook. Founders who pledge company stock for personal loans. Peloton co-founder John Foley had pledged about 3.5 million shares, roughly 20% of his stake, as collateral with Goldman Sachs. As the stock fell roughly 90% from its peak, the bank issued repeated margin calls. Reporting said he raised other financing and avoided an involuntary Goldman fire sale. The equity still cratered with the share price. The tripwire fired. The full Archegos-style dump was avoided that time. If the book survived, under U.S. rules, heirs often get a step-up in basis, marked near fair market value at death. That 1 million basis can become 10 million for the heir. The unrealized gain that made borrowing attractive may never be taxed as a capital gain for the person who lived on the loan. Step-up helps capital gains. Estate tax is a separate fight for the largest fortunes. Trusts, exemptions, gifting, messier than the slogan. For appreciated assets that make it, dying can still beat selling during life. Buy a book that compounds. Borrow against it so spending doesn't force a sale. Service interest from cash flow, not by liquidating the collateral. Hold while the bank is comfortable. At death, basis can reset. Tax-efficient liquidity with a real cascade risk when prices break. Own assets. Borrow against them. Pay interest from cash flow, not by selling the pile. Defer the taxable sale. Hope the collateral holds until the step-up. When it doesn't, history shows the cascade is real. Subscribe to Tickertales, not financial advice.